everybody's got a special thing. And if you don't think someone has a special thing, it's because you haven't spent enough time kind of getting to know them. One of the things that's great about the 251 Club is talking to people about the towns they've been to can be a doorway into whatever the other thing is that's interesting to them.
I'm Sandy Levesque, and I'm the executive director of the 251 Club, now in its 64th year, and we have approximately 6,000 members who are on their own 251 quest.
My name's Eric Osgood. I live in Johnson. I've lived in Vermont all my life.
My name is Ann Silva. I grew up in Massachusetts.
Jim Douglas, 1S, from Middlebury. Proud member of the club for, I don't know, 30 or 35 years. I can't remember exactly.
My name is Ken Stone.
And I'm Nancy Stone. We live in Williston, Vermont.
My name is Philip Hamilton. I moved up here in 1990.
My name is Kelly Clements, and I'm from Bradford, Vermont.
My name is Peter Jenkinson. I'm from North Conway, New Hampshire.
My name's Rick Hubbard, and I live now in South Burlington.
Dave DeVarney. I'm originally from Winooski, Vermont.
I'm Mark Vance, and I'm a fifth-generation Vermonter.
I'm Jessamine West, and I live in Randolph, Vermont.
I grew up in Rutland. I'm a Vermont native. I've lived around the state, but for a very long time now in central Vermont.
Silver Annie was a car that my grandfather purchased in '68, and she was left in a field, and there wasn't much left to her. And he stripped her all the way down, every nut and bolt, right down to the frame, and rebuilt her.
Was born way down south in Bellows Falls, and grew up in Westminster. It was then the third largest chicken farm in the state. And had all kinds of exciting things going on there that I could tell you about, but I don't need to.
And Silver Annie is a member of the 251 Club as well. She has her own little card.
Over a period of time in my work at the post office, I decided that this would be the place that I'd like to have a family.
I was raised in Massachusetts, but my mother was born in Proctor, and my grandparents were there. So for every Christmas, Easter, maybe Thanksgiving, and summer vacation, I was in Proctor, Vermont.
It was nice to grow up in Connecticut. It just got to be so disheartening to be up here and have to drive back to that.
When I was married, we came to Vermont quite a lot for vacation. We got married here. We honeymooned here. And then I went back to Massachusetts and got divorced.
I lived in California for 13 years total, in the Bay Area, Silicon Valley specifically 8 years, and then decided to move back east.
I met this person online, and he lived in Windsor, and I'm like, oh, cool, and I really liked him a lot. So I followed him to Vermont.
As a Vermonter living in New Hampshire, I've been here for a while now, but and I actually have learned to like both states pretty much equally.
Well, I came as a college student in 1968 to Middlebury College. I grew up in Western Massachusetts and didn't know what I wanted to do when I grew up. Not sure I figured it out yet.
I grew up in Bradford. My dad's side of the family has lived there for generations. So that's my connection. I lived here my whole life, went to college here, and I love it.
I served a dozen years as Secretary of State, 8 as State Treasurer, and then 8 in the governorship. And there was no imperative that I retire, but I think it's important to leave the stage while the audience still wants more.
I went hiking a ton with my dad and my brother in the Green Mountains a lot when we were kids. And then I went to UVM for undergraduate school.
I grew up in Middlebury, and after being educated at UVM and out of the state for about 10 years for service and then grad school, law school, came back to Vermont rather than go to the city and chase the big bucks.
I grew up and went to college, and then I moved to Seattle because I was like, done with New England. And then I kind of got over it and came home. But instead of coming back to Massachusetts was a little busy for me. I wanted to live someplace rural. I kind of bought the Vermont thing. Like, I was like, it's rural, it's kind of empty, the neighborly, whatever.
I live in Bristol, Rhode Island, and I've just finished running Vermont's 251 towns and cities.
I kind of wound up coming to a place that I felt like was the middle of nowhere, and it turned out to be kind of where my people were from.
One way to learn more about that wonderful state is to visit every nook and cranny, all 251 cities and towns.
I've just always known about it. Like, it's just a thing you know about. Like, there's 251 towns in Vermont. Go do them.
Previous to starting this, we didn't know about it. It was just something that we wanted to do.
Yeah, I just started driving around on the weekends, and my sister told me about the club. She had read it in Vermont Life, and I was like, well, that sounds pretty cool.
He came home and said, I want to go on all the back roads of Vermont, and you can do art. And I thought, I think there's something like that.
And I'm still actually not a member. I've looked at membership. It's $10 for 2 years. I just need to do it.
So my first thought was, 251 Club, what is that? Is that like, you know, the Mile High Club? But it turned out that's not what it was.
I went to Common Cause, which nationally had been formed to work on improving our political system, and said, I'm going back to Vermont. Is there anything I can do to help? And in order to talk about this, I am going to walk 3 sides of Vermont.
It really began when I was Secretary of State in the 80s and early 90s. I wanted to visit every town clerk in Vermont because that's an important relationship between the Secretary of State and local government.
In the process of walking Vermont, I heard about, for the first time, the 251 Club.
So at some point I thought, gosh, I'm visiting every town in the state. I ought to join the 251 Club. So I did.
We went on the 251 excursion with our 29 Buick, Silver Annie.
We wanted to document where we had been. And of course, us being both postal workers, you know, it was a no-brainer that we were going to probably take pictures of the post offices because almost every town had one.
There didn't seem to be like a cohesive thing about it. It was just like, go get gazetteer and go. So I literally had like a gazetteer and a highlighter pen and an automobile.
You don't agree on politics, guns, automobiles, music. Nothing do we agree on. So the 251 Club was a perfect way. We both love Vermont. So that was the perfect way for us to be together.
It's a wonderful experience, and it's wonderful to share with someone. You know, I was able to share that with my wife. You know, she passed in October. We were married for 19 years, so. Mm-hmm.
When I did come to Vermont, I was pretty damaged. So to come back here and be able to find peace, find a home that I could afford, it was a really big deal.
But, you know, the times Nancy and I had just doing that were just wonderful. So, I mean, that will stay with me forever.
There are no rules. I call it a lawless organization. No rules, no requirements.
I think that's a very Vermont-y way to do it, you know, that there's an overarching, you know, we love Vermont, we want to visit.
Whatever the motivation, I think it's great to have as many ambassadors for our state as we can possibly have.
We have people who walk the state, who run from town to town, who ride their bike, who ride their motorcycle. We even had a couple who put their canoe in, a body of water in every one of Vermont's 251 towns and cities. Sometimes it was a beaver pond, but they did it.
You know, do it with friends, do it without friends, do it on your own, do it walking, do it this, you know, go plant a tree in every town. Whatever your thing is, everything is good.
In order for us to check off a town, all 3 of us had to be there at the same time. And we would take a picture of something in the town with the car and at least one of us.
Actually saw an Instagram account where a girl had gone to every town in Vermont. And I was kind of inspired to do the same thing, but with a little twist. So I bring a letter board with me with the town name to every town.
That'll be our thing. We'll go to a diner and we'll build our trip around that. That didn't happen.
With my assistant, we'd put together a day of visiting half a dozen or 8 offices in a particular area, and so that's how I would over time visit all of them.
Started off with several rules. We had to go together. We had to go with intent. We would kiss in each town.
Yeah, we had to do that.
And we'd buy cheese in each town. Well, there isn't cheese in each town, and some of the towns are so small you don't even know you went through it, so we gave up on the kissing too.
And then I went, we're both wearing Berkeys. Let's take a picture of our feet. So we took a picture of our feet, and then I just thought it was hysterical. So that's how we continued.
There's 183 public libraries in the state of Vermont, and I want to go see them all.
We'll be on the way up there, and he'll say, all right, we went through Winhall. I'm like, we didn't stop and take a picture of our feet. It doesn't count.
I think we need to explain that he said you could do art. So I thought, all right, I'm a painter. I also make handmade books. What would my project be? And I decided to make postcards for each town.
When I'm involved in it, usually we're taking like a trip somewhere. So for example, like we just took part in the Burlington Marathon. So we're like, all right, let's take some back roads that we usually don't do, and we'll hit those towns all on the way.
Vermont, surprisingly, for such a small state, has a lot of like different parts of it that look really different.
And it was amazing to discover how different Vermont is from Chittenden County.
Oh, yeah.
There's towns, whether it be Barrie or Brattleboro or where have you, you know about them. You've been there before. You know of something you probably want to take a picture with, but it's not the same uniqueness that these little treasures, they seem to really come all out and appreciate that you've taken the time to go there.
Pretty fond of most every town we visited for some reason, whether it was trails that they had or a little hole-in-the-wall place like Tinmouth. I mean, who's heard of Tinmouth other than when you're there?
But I remember visiting the town clerk of Waltham, which is a small town in Addison County. The office was in her home, as it was in many small communities in those days, and she kept the town records out back in a chicken coop.
This was the first place we went on our start of our journey.
I was like, holy cow, where the heck am I? I thought I got lost. I didn't think I was in Vermont anymore. And then I see all of these shops with these brand designer names and stuff. And I just had, it was very surprising to me. So as far as it being a favorite, I mean, Manchester's a cool town, but my introduction to it was different.
Certainly Middlebury is my favorite town. I've been here a half century.
Favorite town today is Derby Line, because Derby Line has the Haskell Free Library and Opera House that is on both sides of the international border.
It was very cool to go to Peru and stand on the marble, the beautiful marble sidewalks, and know that Sir Paul McCartney ate in that store.
We loved Stratford. It was so beautiful and unexpected. Horses everywhere, and there was a really amazing old cemetery that we saw. The headstones were from like 1899 and 1902.
And then you'd look at a little town like Jamaica and realize it must have really been hit by Tropical Storm Irene, because the houses are right near the rocky edge of the river.
I was chatting with someone who lives in the town of Leamington up in the Northeast Kingdom, and I asked, do you know where Stamford is? And she had no clue. And then within that same year, I was talking with someone who lived in Stamford, and I asked, do you know where the town of Leamington is? And she had no clue.
It was in Leicester.
Yeah.
Leicester.
Don't know how to pronounce it.
My gauge was, if I didn't have a map or GPS, could I drive around there and not be lost, right? So I intentionally got lost in a lot of towns and actually found a lot of neat things.
Nancy would always apologize profusely about getting us lost, and I thought, that's the experience of the 251 Club.
After you kind of hit all the major ones that you can easily get to on roads, then you've really got to go almost spelunking to get the strays, right? Like, it's a joke that like Lewis is the last town everybody goes to.
You mean Lewis?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lewis and Lewis Pond, I guess, I don't know if they're the same thing or not, but in reading about Lewis, there are some old buildings there. I did not see any.
There was a time when you couldn't drive into Lewis.
I've heard from lots of people that in the Northeast Kingdom, Lewis, Vermont is incredibly hard to find.
I've never met a person who lives in Lewis.
He's done them all except Lewis. Governor Douglas has done them all except Lewis.
As soon as it became public that I had yet to visit Lewis. I received a number of invitations from people who have hunting camps there or own property of one kind or another.
She'll go anywhere else, anywhere any other car will go. We took her into Lewis Pond, which was, I think, about 12 miles on back dirt road.
And then I kept going, and the road was just not actually a road. Like, there was like boulders, and like, I'm like, am I in a river? I'm not sure what's going on.
And going up the hill, past houses for sale, I went, yeah, I understand why. And we get up and there's a sign, road closed for the season.
We went down this road, and it was like a dead end, and we had spent like 15 to 30 minutes easily just driving around looking for Shelburne Farms.
I was going into Granby, Vermont, second to last town to get electricity. And as I'm crossing the road, there goes a bear waddling in front of me about 50, 60 yards away.
The only mishap that we had was in Killington. We had a flat tire.
One state trooper deemed me a human GPS because I had been all over the state during the last couple of decades.
Another really tricky thing is the seasons have a lot to do with it, right? I mean, you know, Smuggler's Notch just closed in the wintertime, and some of these roads around here, even mud season, ooh, like, no.
We got some real stares and looks because they did not expect to see a car like this way out in those back roads.
You know, there's a lot of beauty I didn't know was here.
Those from outside the state come here, and the word that they use most often is it's just beautiful.
Beauty. It's beautiful. It's naturally beautiful. There are no billboards.
Everywhere in Vermont is just so beautiful. The Green Mountains are phenomenal.
I will argue that it's better than other places because we work hard to maintain those values and the natural beauty that sets us apart.
You know, it's probably better for from a money perspective to have billboards, but we decided we don't because the rural culture and the beauty of the landscape matter.
And Vermonters love their state.
Vermonters typically have a lot of pride in the state, in the heritage and all that.
We fashion ourselves as rugged individualists. A lot of our farmers have had to eke a living out of rocky hillsides.
I think people here have a lot of shared values, shared history.
People are kind of ready to look out for one another, and that's a value that if they don't bring it here, they learn it here.
There's an old saying that Vermont is a state of mind, and I really believe that it's different from other places.
And I remember debating, should I go back to Vermont? The economic prospects won't be nearly as good, but the lifestyle and my surroundings are really important to me.
An unsurpassed natural beauty, the lowest crime rate in America, no billboards. Who wouldn't want to live here?
A lot of people do want to flee Vermont, but I don't know why they would. It's like so beautiful.
Right.
If we have no young people here, no working age population, then it's pretty hard to keep a vital economy going for our future.
Pretty much everyone from my high school graduating class that I was friends with left. I mean, my best friend from high school is in San Diego now.
When I had moved to California, it's part of my identity. I was from Vermont, right? I almost felt like I was an ambassador for Vermont the whole time I lived there.
And when I was in high school, I would complain, you know, the nearest movie theater is 30 minutes away. But now I'm like very at peace with that fact.
And when I moved back here, I kind of realized, you know, it really was a part of who I am. And I wanted to actually understand more about the place that I identified with.
It was more important to me to go back and be a part of a state that I felt really connected to.
You know, Nancy was a Vermonter as well. I mean, she grew up. She claims that she was part of the Ethan Allen family. She was a Vermonter, not me.
I think I will always have this accent, so every once in a while I know I'm going to say Chester, and somebody's going to say, where are you from?
There was a meme on the internet of, you know, this is how I see myself as a Vermonter, and this is how other people see me. You know, it's interesting how people's perception is of Vermonters.
You know, you're a Flatlander, I know it. Yes, I am, but I love Vermont as much as you do.
I feel a part of Vermont.
Well, I do think small is, you know, the key to that sense of identity because, you know, most towns are 2,000 people.
Burlington is not, I mean, that's where the most people are, but 30,000 people is not a population center where you basically get a place that becomes the state.
We finished in 2016, and the last town we did was, which was a surprise to everyone, but we saved Burlington just because it was the largest city.
You know, it was like a super letdown when I went to my 251st town, and like, that was it.
I've thought about trying to do the long trail. I've also thought, 10 years from now, trying to go around the United States.
The only thing I jokingly told my wife that now we've done the 251 towns, we need to do the 50 states, but she doesn't think we'll do that.
He did like the idea of some people visiting all of the breweries.
Oh, yeah.
And then I would do all the driving, which I can't do.
It takes a lot of time doing this.
It's
just
very
like very
time-consuming.
time consuming, but also worth it.
And when we find someone who's starting it, we get all enthusiastic for them. And if we meet people who have done it, there's just an absolute connection no matter what town they're from.
I really felt that I got my ideas and strength from visiting all corners of the state, to learn what people are doing in the communities of Vermont, to hear what their ideas are, their hopes, their concerns, their aspirations.
Peck away at the goal of seeing if before I check out in life I can complete all 251 towns.
It kind of all fits together, and every single journey is unique.
Less than 200 to go.
I've brought my kids to many towns in Vermont, and I wouldn't say they love it.
Selfie stick, don't leave home without it.
I'm hoping that eventually, when they're older, they will. But yeah, right now they're not a fan of just riding around in the car.
I look at our notes now and, all the pictures we took and whatnot. The memories come flooding back. It's wonderful.
It's a rich experience, which is why so many members repeat it. Some have done it 2 or 3 times.
As I look back over my life, many of the things that I hold most memorable have something to do with being outside, traveling around in different places and meeting different people.
So it's just like everything else in life. If it's something that comes to mind, just do it while you can.
There's something about the goal unattained that's attractive. Something still left to do. Because when I go to Lewis, well, then I've become a Plus member and I have no further step to take. Mm-hmm. So maybe I'll leave it out there for a while.
It was very interesting to be part of a thing where you completed your quest and then you were done. Which I think kind of is why I just started over again.